Good evening, ladies. In today's video, we're going to be discussing Hyperliquid again. And in today's video specifically, I want to give you a range of price targets that you could, just to give you a range of where I think Hyperliquid could get to. Obviously, there's a million factors that goes into determining a future price target of, 6 months to a 1 year time frame. There's a lot of things that can alter the actual price that it gets to. Now, I did be back in 2023, early 2024, I was all about Solana, and I kind of gave some price targets of where I think Solana could get to, and I was saying like minimum 500 to 1,000 was kind of my range of where I thought Solana would get to. And Solana did peak at 300, and I do think it's going to break those highs and eventually get into that price range that I did predict. And I'm just mentioning that because just so you're aware that I am a bit of a hyper bull sometimes. I do get a bit, maybe a bit carried away sometimes. Honestly thought Solana could get to 2,000 at some point, but just take all my price targets with a bit of a grain of salt. But I'm gonna try my best to be somewhat realistic. But the nice thing about Hyperliquid is it's a little bit more easy to value than Solana. I will say though, Hyperliquid is a little bit easier to determine a valuation as opposed to the Solana, because with Solana, obviously the price to earnings, the price to sales ratios, they're obviously like in the hundreds. They're like really, really high. So the best way that we could determine a price target for Solana was using it as like a percentage of each market cap of Ethereum's market cap. So, which is obviously also, kind of, because it's a money, it's kind of hard to put a price target on something that like doesn't have fundamentals. It isn't so much valued on its fundamentals. It's more, obviously it is partly valued on its fundamentals, but there's also a huge aspect of Solana where it's valued on its moneyness. It's like trying to put a price target on gold or something. Like a lot of gold's, the 90% of gold's market cap is basically speculation. It's like, oh, people are going to say it's worth $3,000 per ounce, blah, blah, blah. You get the picture. Whereas Hyperliquid, you can kind of put a better valuation on it because it's, whereas with Hyperliquid, it's earning a huge amount of revenue, it's earning a huge amount of fees, and you can just smack a multiple on top of that revenue, which is all basically 97% is going to buy back the token. So it's just earnings. You can smack a multiple on it and determine a price target in that way. Hyperliquid right now kind of reminds me of Solana in early 2024, late 2023, starting to take off, starting to become one of a consensus trades of the rest of the cycle. It's starting to become a consensus trade of the rest of the cycle. Although I do still think it is somewhat early in that consensus trade aspect. Now, I will preface by saying we are late stage in this cycle, so do be careful. Probably don't put your entire portfolio into crypto at this late stage of the bull market. But if there's any kind of good risk to reward opportunities, I do think Hyperliquid probably is one of those. So I also want to talk about the opportunity that I see with Hyperliquid on chain right now. I do think if Hyperliquid continues to do well, continues to attract new users, there's also going to be another massive airdrop that people are kind of sleeping on with Hyperliquid. All this new capital coming into Hyperliquid and plus a huge airdrop coming to Hyperliquid users means that Hyperliquid on chain, like memes, NFTs, projects, protocols, all on the new Hyperliquid EVM, could be a good opportunity as well. Kind of similar to Solana 2023 when Solana started to boom. All of the memes on Solana went absolutely crazy. Do I think that is going to repeat on Hyper EVM? Potentially not to that same extent, but maybe a little bit. So it's definitely an opportunity worth paying attention to. So my assumption when it comes to putting these valuation targets on Hyperliquid is assuming Bitcoin hasn't topped for the cycle and is going to continue performing well for the next 6 months or for the next year, and Bitcoin's going to be making new highs, maybe get to 150 to 200,000, kind of within that range within 2025. And if that happens, that's kind of what we're looking at with Hype. Assuming that that happens, it means Hyperliquid is going to make more revenue. Number one, because prices are higher. Hyperliquid charges a percentage on every trade. So when prices are higher, people are going to be trading more money just from the prices being higher. The revenue is going to be a percentage of that higher price, more revenue. It's also, you can see from this, taking more and more market share from centralized exchanges doesn't look like this is topped. It's probably going to increase the amount of market share it's taken, unless you think it's topped here in the amount of market share it's taken. I don't know why you would think that, but it's looking like it's going to continue in an uptrend. So that's two reasons that compound on each other of how much revenue Hyperliquid is going to continue to earn. Those revenues are most likely going to continue to grow over the next 6 months to 1 year. And even if Bitcoin goes crazy, has a massive blow off top in the next 6 months, that's just going to be even more volatility. Volatility, prices booming, prices crashing, means more revenue. Again, if you don't know what Hyperliquid is, if you want a deeper dive on Hyperliquid before we continue, I recommend you watch this video right here, because that goes deeper into what Hyperliquid is and why I'm so bullish on it. And I've made a lot of videos on Hyperliquid over the last few months. But yeah, let's just continue on with the video. So let's quickly explain the difference between Hypercore and the Hyper-EVM. The Hypercore, that's kind of the original product that Hyperliquid launched. That's a perp dex. So when I first saw Hyperliquid, I was like, oh, it's just a perp dex. There's loads of perp dexes. It's not going to be valued in the tens of billions of dollars for just this perp. However, it actually kind of is worth tens of billions of dollars. Loads of traders came on and started using this perp dex. The reason being, it was custom designed to be, the entire chain was designed to be perfectly made to be a perp dex. So it's really fast, really cheap. Actually, it's free to use the perp dex once you've deposited on it, but all the transactions are on chain. There's loads of stuff that they've gone in to make this perp dex perfect. I don't want to get into everything, but created by Jeff, who's a Harvard graduate, high frequency trader, funded it all himself. So it's just perfectly designed, like really well designed as a chain to be a perp dex. And then they came along and built an EVM chain to go along with it. Now, do I think the EVM chain is amazing? No, it's just a standard EVM chain. It's gonna have all the problems that an EVM chain already has. Like, you probably know that I'm not a huge fan of the EVM. So now that people are using the EVM chain, the Hyper EVM chain, transactions are spiking, not on the Hypercore with the perp dex, that's still fine, but the Hyper EVM, which is supplementary to the Hypercore, the EVM gas prices are spiking, the EVM transactions maybe a little bit slower, but yeah, still nothing crazy. It's still a decent chain, still a good EVM chain. So just keep that in mind when we're putting a valuation onto Hype. But the main product being Hypercore, i.e. the perp dex, the grand vision with that is to become the everything exchange, and that's where those crazy valuations can come in, which we'll talk about. It's also the same vision that Anatoly has for Solana. So Anatoly always said he wants to make the NASDAQ on the blockchain, where you can trade anything from anywhere in the world on a blockchain on Solana. That's kind of the shining light. That's the vision for Solana. And it's essentially the same vision with Hypercore with the Perps dex. So there's trade-offs between both Hypercore versus Solana. There's trade-offs between them both. Obviously, Solana is going to be a lot more decentralized. But do you really need huge decentralization for a Perps dex or to trade anything on chain? Potentially not. We'll have to see in the end. I kind of think they both will execute on this vision. They will have a really good chance to execute on that vision. Obviously, Solana, anyone can launch any token on Solana, and the team doesn't need to verify it or approve it. Whereas with Hyperliquid, you can't just list anything on the Hyperliquid Perps dex. Like, it has to be kind of approved by the team. You have to auction off a ticker. There's a lot more that goes into it, so it's a little bit more centralized, but it's a nicer UX, etc., etc. So there's different trade-offs between them both. But essentially, the point I'm trying to make is they're both going after the same vision, and the same vision is absolutely fucking huge. So let's start talking about the revenue and the fees that Hyperliquid is making on an annualized basis, on a daily basis, because it's absolutely mind-melting how much money they're making from their Perps dex, as well as their Hyper EVM starting to make a little bit of money as well. And if you didn't know, all the fees that they charge to the traders on Hyperliquid, 97% of that goes back to buying the token. So that's why Hyperliquid has this infinite bid, and this infinite bid is just growing and growing and growing as more people go onto the platform, and traders trade way more. There's much more liquidity going on, and traders are trading huge size now on Hyperliquid. We've seen this guy, James Wynn, who's been trading billion-dollar positions all publicly on chain on Hyperliquid. Absolute degen, just like the rest of us, except swinging crazy size, putting 25 million on a 40x long on Bitcoin. Absolutely insane. And his P&L is just going crazy up and down. But yeah, overall, he's made a fortune on Hyperliquid. So that's actually a stress test of Hyperliquid. And we'll see if he gets liquidated. That's going to be, if Hyperliquid successfully liquidates him, if he gets liquidated, like such a huge position getting liquidated, and Hyperliquid not failing or nothing going wrong when the liquidation happens. If it happens, hopefully it doesn't happen, but it would be a huge stress test. It's kind of like Solana had this huge stress test when Trump launched his meme coin, and it passed the test flawlessly. It's kind of similar that Hyperliquid is being able to handle a $1 billion position right now. So this is a chart of all the top fees generated by all the different protocols in crypto. So fees is the amount that is charged to the user of the protocol, whereas revenue, which I'll show you in a minute, is the amount of money the percentage of those fees that goes back to the token in some way. So fees is what the customer actually pays. So Hyperliquid is number 9 in the most fees generated of any protocol, project, chain in crypto, with, in the last 24 hours, 2.9 million of fees charged. And the revenue is top 4. So revenue, again, I told you 97% of the fees goes back to the token. So that's why it's a top 5 revenue generating protocol that includes all the apps, all the chains, everything in crypto. It's top 4, and it's basically number 1 it's basically number 2 if you don't include stable coins. That's in the last 24 hour. Obviously there's been a lot of volatility in crypto, so we can't really annualize a daily revenue number. It's a bit unfair. So for the last 30 days, that's 7 days, sorry. For the last 7 days, it's top 3 in revenue, which is insane. And for the last 30 days, it's number 9 in fees. So that's crazy, actually. Hyperliquid over the last 30 days has made $60 million in fees, whereas something like Solana has made $48 million. So it's actually making more in fees than the entire Solana blockchain. But we can see like there's other applications like Meteora, like Jito, that are making even more fees than Hyperliquid. Like Jito has its own token, but Hyperliquid has a much higher market cap than Jito, or than Uniswap, or than PumpFun or PancakeSwap. Hyperliquid has a higher market cap, but it's generating less fees. So, and for example, Solana is generating less revenue than Hyperliquid, but has a much higher market cap. So there's more to it than just the amount of fees that a protocol is generating. Like there's more aspects to coming up with a valuation, but that's one of the best fundamental ways to value a cryptocurrency or a business, is the amount of profits that they're making. And that's essentially what we're showing here. The amount of profits that Hyperliquid is making are absolutely insane in comparisons to its valuation. So currently it depends if you want to value on a fully diluted valuation or a circulating market cap valuation, what the PE ratio is. So it's kind of up to yourself, but yeah, it's about 3 times, like about a third of the supply is in circulation. So, and another 40% is to be given out to another airdrop. So make sure if you haven't watched my airdrop video on Hyperliquid, the follow-up airdrop video, watch that. But yeah, like depending if you want to value it on a fully diluted valuation, I think it's like a 40 price to earnings ratio. Whereas if you're valuing it on a circulating market cap, it's like a 17 PE ratio. So both seem quite small for such a fast growing, profitable business, but nevertheless. If you annualize that, like 2 million, we saw it made like 3 million in fees today. So let's say 2 million in fees, that's 750 million in a year. 750 million over the market cap of 10 billion. So 10 billion divided by... So on a circulating market cap basis, Hyperliquid's currently trading at a price to earnings ratio of 13, which is like, you know, a slow growth industry in the S&P 500. So it's really, really cheap. If you're valuing it on a fully diluted valuation, you just multiply that by 3 and you get about 40. So 40, somewhere between 13 and 40 is the current price to earnings ratio, and that's using revenue of $2 million a day, which is quite conservative in my opinion, because we can see it's making actually like $3 million a day, and for the rest of the year it's probably, that revenue, like I said, is going to increase over the rest of the year in most likely of a scenario. So that's a conservative price to earnings ratio. It's probably even lower. But like I said, projects aren't just valued on the amount of fees and the amount of profits that they're generating, especially with layer ones like Solana, like Ethereum. They make a decent amount of fees, they make a decent amount of revenue, but they're valued in the tens, if not hundreds of billions in market cap, which is like, you know, a price to earning ratio of like 100 or 200 depending on the day. So obviously they're getting valued on something else. What is that something else? That something else is like money. So Solana, because you use it in DeFi, because you use it to buy memes, it's considered a money and it gets this monetary premium. Same thing with Ethereum. It has this monetary premium. It's like the entire market cap of Bitcoin. It's just a monetary premium that it gets just because people value it for the sake of its own value, not because of the profits that it's generating. So we can add a monetary premium to Hyperliquid because it has its own layer one. So this is a chart that Ryan Watkins made, and we can kind of determine the different valuations we can put for each different business model or different valuation metrics for the Hype token. The Perps DEX opportunity, he thinks that's a $70 billion opportunity. Perps plus spot, another 80 billion, so like another 10 billion for the spot market that's on Hyperliquid. I'll explain all this in a minute if you don't understand. Okay, and then he's adding another 50 billion, another 60 billion for the layer one opportunity. So that's what I want to talk about for a minute. So the Hyperliquid Perp DEX, I'll talk about that opportunity in a minute, like the valuations for that. But do I think Hyperliquid EVM is going to demand a $60 billion valuation? And then obviously in the Hyper Bull case, Ryan Watkins, the everything exchange valuation opportunity, he's adding like, you know, $400 billion, $350 billion of valuation opportunity for Hyperliquid, which would be like, if it got to 500 billion, that would be a $500 Hype token on a fully diluted valuation size. On a circulated market cap, that would be $1,500 per Hype. Now, that's just absolutely insane, so let's not even go there for the moment. But he's saying that the layer one has a $60 billion opportunity. Let's compare the different L1s in crypto. Obviously, Bitcoin, let's not even discuss it because it's not really a smart contract platform. Ethereum's market cap, 300 billion, BNB, 100 billion, Solana, 100 billion market cap, Cardano, 28 billion market cap, Tron, 25 billion, Sui, 12 billion, and finally Hyperliquid at 11 billion. So he's saying the opportunity for Hyperliquid, the L1 opportunity, the valuation for its layer one, the EVM chain, is like, you know, almost on the order of Solana, like between Cardano and Solana. Do I agree? I don't actually agree. Reason being, it's an EVM chain. There's enough chains, there's enough smart contract platforms. It has all the problems that every EVM chain has. So I wouldn't put it at like a $60 billion valuation. For me personally, I think it's probably, you know, like there are some advantages that the Hype EVM has. The advantages it has all come from essentially the Perp DEX. So it has this amazing Perp DEX, this amazing application that loads of people enjoy using, that loads of people are using, that's generating loads of fees, that has a ton of liquidity. So it has all this liquidity, has all these users. A lot of builders are going to come onto the Hype EVM because they see that there's a lot of liquidity there and they're going to build interesting projects on the Hype EVM. So that's kind of the idea with the Hype EVM. The other thing it has, the other advantage that Hype EVM has, is that it has composability with the Perp DEX. So what does that mean? It means that you can basically tap into the liquidity on the Perp DEX. You can tap into the prices, the oracles of the Perp DEX in a composable way, like natively. So if you're building a DeFi application, you don't have to rely on Pyth or Chainlink to get your pricing. You can just use the pricing, that's natively on the Perp DEX to build your application. So there's nice composability, there's nice cross-section between the Hype-EVM and the Hyperliquid Perp DEX, the Hyper Core it's called. So it does have some advantages, but I don't think it's $60 billion worth of advantages. I think there's enough layer 2s, there's enough layer 1s. People are really happy with Solana, so I don't think it's going to get a ton of new users onto a Hype-EVM to the same kind of market cap and size that Solana has, in my opinion. But do I think it's going to get some users? Yes, 100%. People realize that there's a huge airdrop coming. Again, another $10 billion of an airdrop at current prices possible for Hyperliquid users. Where's the airdrop going to go? It's going to go to people using the Hyper-EVM and people using the Perp DEX, the Hyper Perp DEX. Obviously, that's going to attract a lot of people, which we'll talk about. Like, this is a huge opportunity, in my opinion. If you want to get early in the Hyper-EVM, we're going to talk about that because, yeah, a lot of people are going to be attracted. It's starting to take off massively right now. And interesting projects will build on the Hyper-EVM. But like I said, there's a lot of smart contracts platforms out there. So I don't think it's going to demand such a massive valuation. But I do think the Hyper-EVM by itself, the standalone valuation could easily be $10 billion, like the same size as Sui, the same size as Avalanche, this bit bigger than Toncoin and Hedera, whatever the fuck that thing is. So I kind of think won't be like one of the top layer 1s that people are using, but it'll be like, a second tier layer 1 in my opinion. So that adds another $10 to the Hyperliquid price in my mind. I think a lot of the valuation is going to come from the Perp DEX itself. But just to confirm, like the TVL on Hyperliquid right now is $4 billion of bridge TVL, and it's number 9 ranked. This includes the Perp DEX, but like it is also top 10 TVL just for the Hyper-EVM, like DeFi applications. So there is a lot of TVL in Hyperliquid. It is in the top 10, but it's still like around the same order of magnitude as stuff like Polygon and Avalanche. So it's not like catching up to Tron, Ethereum, Solana. It's not one of those humongous TVL chains yet. Maybe it will be, but I'm not really happy to stick such a high valuation on the Hyper-EVM yet, in my opinion. Okay, this is my own very, very simplified valuation for the Perp DEX, which is like the main valuation, in my opinion, for Hyperliquid. The main way you should value it. So I hope this makes sense, but like the first chart here at the top shows the fully diluted valuation. Like if you're taking the PE ratio on a fully diluted valuation metric. So the what are they, columns? Yeah, the columns show the different revenue sizes. So it goes from 500 million, which is the very low end, all the way up to $3 billion of revenue. This is on an annualized basis. So $3 billion is the very bull case that Hyperliquid can earn in a year, and revenue of 500 million is the very low end. And I don't think it's going to be 500 million. It's definitely going to be higher than that. And then the rows show the different PE multiples that you can slap on it, from all the way from 10, which would be extremely low, all the way up to 75, which would be quite high. And this gives basically a price target for the token. So like the 5 there in column 1, row 1, that's going to be a $5 price target for Hyperliquid. So obviously it's earning more than 500 million on an annualized basis, and it's going to have this is just for the Perp DEX, so we're not talking about anything else but the valuation for just the Perp DEX alone. So that would be a $5 price target on a fully diluted valuation if you're putting a multiple on it on the FDV, all the way to the maximum. So if it's earning $3 billion on an annualized basis and you slap a 75x multiple on that, that would be a $225 price target for Hyperliquid. Do I think it's going to earn $3 billion in a year? I think that's actually possible. A $75 PE. Also, plenty of growth companies in the NASDAQ. Like I remember Tesla had a PE ratio of 100, Amazon had a PE ratio of 100, that are growing super fast, so it's possible to value stuff at that high multiples, but obviously that's a really high multiple. So that's on a fully diluted valuation. If you value it on a circulating market cap, basically you're just multiplying everything by 3, so it's obviously getting absolutely crazy at that point. But I don't think you should value it on a fully diluted or a circulating market cap. You need to value it somewhere in between. The reason being is there is still more tokens to be supplied into the market. About 30% more is going to come into the market, and then another 30%, like, that's just basically, that's not, nothing's happening with that for many years, probably, or a couple of years. So that's kind of like burn supply for the moment, but people still take into account there are these potential tokens that could come on the market. So people do still look at the fully diluted valuation. And circulated market cap, probably unfair to use that as well, because obviously people know there's more tokens that are going to be emitted. There's going to be a big airdrop. Obviously some people who get the next airdrops, like, who knows what the team is going to decide, how many tokens come out into the supply over the next year. Only they really know that or have an idea. So it's unfair to kind of say, oh, let's just take the circulating market cap, because obviously there's going to be more tokens coming into circulation at some point, and a lot of those airdrop receivers will sell some of those tokens, probably, you know. So it's unfair to say that. So I just took an average of both of them. So, you know, 30% of the supply is burned, 30% more of the supply is going to get released. So, you know, this is all just very back of the napkin stuff, kind of just to give you an idea of the potential valuations. So this is still crazy though, when you think about it. Like the Perp DEX, right now it's earning like $750 million annualized basis. Over the next year, that's probably going to increase, in my opinion. Could easily earn 1.2 billion, 2 billion on an annualized basis by the end of the year. A PE multiple on like such a profitable company that's growing so fast, when things go so crazy in crypto, like, you know, people value Solana at 100x PE. You know, obviously some of these higher PE ratios could happen, but, you know, maybe it only stays at like a 15 to 25 PE where it is now, but maybe it gets up to a 40 PE. A 40 PE on a $2 billion run rate of revenue, that would be a $160 hype price just for the Perp DEX. So that's kind of, I'd kind of, you know, personally, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of, you know, $70 to $150 seems reasonable. But this is just for the Perp DEX. Obviously, that's not the only thing you can value it on. You can add another $10 in my mind for the Hyper EVM, maybe 20 for like $20 billion valuation. And if you're taking the average between the circulating and the fully diluted, you multiply that by 1.5, so $15 billion, extra $15, so to $25, something like that, $22.5. So adding those two things up, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $70, $80 up to $160, in my personal opinion, from these valuation metrics. The last thing you can value it on, this is what Ryan Watkins is talking about, and this is what we're super bullish on. This is a call option. And once we're finished with these valuation metrics, we are going to talk about how to get the next airdrop quickly and some massive opportunities. Because I think, you know, the on-chain landscape with the Hyper EVM could be one of the best opportunities, like Solana on-chain. When Solana started taking off in 2023, there are potentially huge opportunities on this chain. And even if like a lot of this doesn't really go anywhere, like the Hyper EVM, it's likely that you'll get a nice extra airdrop for doing these things from the next Hyperliquid airdrop. And the next Hyperliquid airdrop is $10 billion at current prices. They said they're going to give out another 38%. Hyperliquid's currently $38 billion. That's like a $15 billion. That's a $15 billion airdrop potential, like the biggest one in history again, if they give out all the tokens over the next year, which probably they won't, but, you know, there's still a huge potential airdrop to come out for Hyperliquid. The last point that we'll talk about is the everything exchange that we kind of discussed at the start, where it's a Perp DEX, like people trade crypto on it, but the everything exchange is where this Perp DEX, people start listing all sorts of things on it, such as stocks, commodities, bonds, whatever the fuck you want, housing, I don't know. People list everything on Hyperliquid. So that's a huge total addressable market. Ryan Watkins is putting that opportunity at $500 billion in market cap. So in my mind, do I think this is going to happen? You can't really put a probability on it. Like, you can't say, yeah, this is definitely going to happen. Well, it is most likely they're going to try and make it happen. So how do you value something like that? You kind of say, okay, there's a call option on this huge total addressable market happening. Let's say there's a 10% probability that this kind of everything exchange plays out. Like, they are going to list, in my mind, they are going to list stuff like stocks. They're going to let people list with the HIP3, Hyperliquid Improvement Proposal 3. They're letting people list stuff that, like, people can auction to list whatever they want. They have to stake 1 million hype tokens, so that's what, $35 million. They have to stake that in order to list something, and then they have to auction for a new ticker. So they're really going to try and list all the best stuff. So they're going to try and list Tesla stock first, probably. I don't know, what else would you want to list? Gold, like a perp for gold. I guess that's already there, but you get what I mean. They want to list everything on Hyperliquid exchange with massive, anything that has huge volume, anything that has huge liquidity. And that's a big unlock. People being able to trade Tesla stock 24/7 anywhere in the world, no KYC on chain. So that's a big opportunity. $500 billion, let's say there's a 10% chance of that happening, like to that extent. That would be another $50 billion valuation. So in your mind, you could say there's anywhere from like a 5% to a 25% probability of that happening. So that would be like an extra $25 billion to what, 25%, $100 billion extra opportunity in market cap for Hyperliquid. So that is an extra $25 to $100 on that price target, because there's what, 10 billion tokens, or 1 billion tokens, 10 billion tokens. It's just $25 billion of market cap on a fully diluted valuation adds an extra $25 to the price target. So let's say $50. So what do we say? We said anywhere from $75 to $150 or to $150. So you can now say an extra anywhere from $100 up to $250 as the price target for Hyperliquid, given everything that we've talked about. Now, again, I'll go back to the start of the video where I did say, like, you know, I was valuing Solana anywhere from $500 to $2,000 for this bull market. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. Don't get too hyper bullish. Don't take out massive debt to buy Hyperliquid or something. So, but, you know, I do think it's one of the best plays for the rest of the cycle on a risk to reward basis. But just don't get carried away. This is just my opinion, and I'm retarded, as you know. So let's just talk about the Hypurrfi. Like, I know I said I'm not super bullish on the Hypurrfi. However, I still do think it's a great opportunity. Number one, because I think they're going to massively reward Hypurrfi users in the next airdrop. That's just a hunch. It's just a guess. So maybe they don't at all. Maybe they only reward the Perp Dex users and the stakers. Who knows? But I assume they're going to reward people who are using the chain. So some bullish things about the Hypurrfi. In order to get onto the Hypurrfi, or in order to buy hype in the first place, the only place you can buy hype is if you bridge to Hyperliquid and buy Hyperliquid on the Hyperliquid DEX. Like, there's no other way to buy hype for the moment. So in order to buy hype, you actually have to use the product. Then you might realize, oh, this is actually a nice product. I might become a user of Hyperliquid. Instead of using Binance, instead of using Coinbase, I can just buy Bitcoin spot here, or I can sell Bitcoin spot here. I can sell spot Solana here. I can trade perps here. It's all cheaper, it's all fast. I don't need KYC, I don't need to do any of this bullshit. And I don't have to trust this exchange. Whereas like Binance, you have to send them your money and they keep the money for you. With Hyperliquid, obviously the money stays in your own wallet. Like the Bitcoin, the USDC, the hype, all is in your wallet, and you're just using a DEX. So there's no counterparty risk, and the fees are better. The fees are cheaper, and it's fast. It's like really good UX. The other bullish thing for the Hyperliquid EVM, like I said, people know there's going to be a big airdrop. They're probably going to bridge and start farming the Hyperliquid EVM in order to get the next big airdrop. What are they going to do? They're going to be buying the meme coins, they're going to be buying the NFTs, they're going to be using the DeFi platforms in order to farm the next airdrop. So this is starting to happen already. A lot of the memes with the Hyperliquid price going up. Also, the Hyperliquid price going up means the TVL on Hyperliquid goes up because a lot of the TVL is in the Hype token. So TVL going up means people are like, oh, Hype is really taking off, I'm going to buy more Hype. TVL goes up even more. The other good thing about the Hyper EVM is now Hyperliquid, the Hype token, has fundamental value outside of just the buybacks. Like, obviously the buybacks gave a lot of value to the fundamental value to the Hype token, but now on top of that, Hype is actually a gas token and it has fundamental value in the Hyperliquid EVM ecosystem. So it has two sets of fundamental value. All the buybacks, like from the Hyper EVM and from the Perp decks, go back to buying the token. So as fundamental cash flow earnings go into the Hyperliquid token, and it also has a use case as like digital oil within the Hyperliquid EVM. An example is people don't need to sell their Hype anymore. If they're still bullish on Hyperliquid, they can go into the Hyperliquid EVM, they can put their Hype up as collateral, and they can borrow USDC or USDT against their Hype token if they think the Hype price is going to continue going up over time. If they're still bullish on it, they can borrow against it in the Hyperliquid DeFi platforms. And I've talked about, I'm not going to go through all the different platforms you can farm because I did talk about that before, but I did mention Buddy in my last video that went like 4x. Per is doing really, really well. These are the main two meme coins on Hyperliquid in my opinion. Alright Buddy and Per, like Hyperliquid. That's the little cat icon that Hyperliquid has. So I do think there is big opportunity with some of these meme coins and some of these NFTs. The other reason being is people are going to think, oh, there's going to be another massive airdrop for Hyperliquid users. What are those Hyperliquid users like? Everyone who's using the Hyperliquid chain, the Hyperliquid EVM is going to get a massive airdrop. They're going to be super rich, and with that big airdrop, they're going to buy all the meme coins and buy all the NFTs. I'm going to front run them and buy those memes and buy those NFTs before the airdrop. Right now, I think you can actually front run the front runners. Like, people aren't really thinking that far ahead yet, so we're front running the front runners in my opinion. We're going to buy all the memes now, buy all the NFTs now, and then when people realize, oh, the next big airdrop is going to come, I'm going to be the airdrop receivers are going to be my exit liquidity. You can use them as your exit liquidity. So yeah, but yeah, the main memes I'm looking at are Per, Buddy, and Rub is another one. I don't own Rub, I just own the first two, which I like. And there are a few that are coming out that are new. I kind of like the OG ones. They're kind of OG because that's like Hyperliquid community meme coins. And then there's a few new ones that like the newbies into Hyperliquid are trying to shill. So they're a bit more risky. So I would kind of say like Per is like the bonk. Alright Buddy, kind of like a bonk as well. And now people are coming out with new ones. So they're a bit more dangerous. But I saw Squirt coin. That's another kind of a new one potentially that could take off. Like, obviously after bonk came whiff, after whiff came like a lot of meme coins that went crazy, so potentially some of the new ones could do really well as well. But a lot of these meme coins are low market cap. Per has a quite high market cap of 150 million, but still, like 150 million, that's like a decently sized meme coin on Solana. But there are meme coins on Solana and Ethereum that are in the billions of market cap. So there are levels, like this is like, it could get to the billions of market cap. Alright Buddy has a market cap of 20 million. That's like a low cap shitter in Solana. And that's like the second biggest meme coin. So I do think there is massive opportunities on the Hyper EVM. The best NFTs, Hyper, I own one of these Hypers. That's the NFT of the main NFT platform. The NFT platform is called drip.trade. And Hyper is their NFT, so probably going to get some rewards if you have one of them, and they're pretty cheap. And I kind of think they look cool as well. Obviously the main NFT, well not obviously, but the main NFT of Hyperliquid is Hippio Babies. I don't own one of these because they're 200 Hype, which is like, I don't know, what's that, like $6 grand. So I don't own one of them. I'd love to own one. I might buy one, but you know, I'm kind of wary about NFTs at the moment. NFTs just haven't really done well this cycle, so I'm a bit hesitant to buy like expensive NFTs because, you know, I'm a brokey or whatever. Another token that I like is Liquid. I only own a small bit of this, but this is the pump fund of Hyperliquid. So liquid.launch, it's just basically a pump fund clone on Hyperliquid. And if the Hyper EVM starts taking off, this is probably, they have a token and it's probably going to continue doing well. But yeah, as you can see, a lot of this stuff is ripped recently. So, you know, you don't need to FOMO potentially. Maybe if you wanted, not financial advice, buy a little bit, wait for a pullback, wait for a better entry, and then you can buy into it if you're bullish on the Hyperliquid EVM. And if you want to trade any of the meme coins, I use hyper.swap or hyperswap.exchange or something. I'll leave the link to everything in the description so you can check it all out for yourself. Check out my last video on farming if you want to farm all the platforms like the DeFi stuff. I'm not going to talk about that here because it would just be quite repetitive and it's probably a really long video. The other NFTs that I should mention is Pip, Ricardios. They're apparently the best ones. I don't own them either, so I need to kind of look into more of this stuff. But yeah, I do think one of the best opportunities over the next while is to be locked in on the Hyperliquid trenches, potentially looking at all the meme coins, get some of the OG meme coins, the OG NFTs, trying out the DeFi platforms, trying out all the perps, just bridge over to Hyperliquid. It's time. You needed a fresh all-time high on Hyperliquid to finally do it. You know, you can even deposit through Sol now. It's actually really easy. So, you know, if you haven't already, I think, not financial advice, I think Hyperliquid is, you know, the next big thing for the rest of the cycle, if the cycle doesn't end tomorrow. So thank you so much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. Smash the thumbs up button if you got value, blah, blah, blah. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.